You deserve to die.
I haven't had a dad since I was 12.
Dead man walking.
I express my deepest regrets.
The person that is executed is never the person who did the crime.
It affects me every day. I mean, I haven't had a dad since I was 12.
At 2 a.m., Reading police officer Scott Wirtz and his partner Malcolm Ettinger were working undercover when they heard gunshots at 8th and Walnut. A foot chase of suspect Cletus Rivera ensued, with Ettinger following Wirtz. During the chase, Ettinger reported hearing 2 gunshots before he saw Wirtz and Rivera fall to the ground. Ettinger handcuffed Rivera. At 2:30, Wirtz was pronounced dead. In 2008, a jury sentenced Rivera to death.
For me, I don't think there'd be any closure. There's never going to be closure because he's not here. But I think if he was, if the death penalty was handled, I think for me it would almost be like it's fair because my dad isn't here.
I definitely think the system needs to be looked at. I don't agree that there should be a moratorium while the system is being looked at. I think the system is definitely flawed. I just think it's more flawed for the victim than it is for the criminal. We have a justice system, and that justice system fortunately worked for us, but in the end, if you get rid of this death penalty, what kind of final justice then is that? And what justice did my husband die for if there's not going to be that final sentencing which he was given?
Hello, this is a free call from
Cletus Rivera.
On September 15th, the Reading Eagle interviewed Rivera at SCI Green in Waynesburg. Rivera said he thinks a lot about that fateful night. He has maintained he didn't know Wirtz was a police officer and that he shot in self-defense. Still, if he could say anything to the Wirtz family, he would apologize.
I express my deepest regrets, my sympathies to all of them for my actions. And I think there's nothing I could do to change things, but I hope all those who do wish me harm or even my death could find it in their hearts to find forgiveness. Not for me, because I'm not being selfish about it. I just hope they find forgiveness so they can move forward in life and not let any ill intentions towards me or any negative emotions towards me hold them back from living life.
In 1988, Harold Wilson was sentenced to death 3 times for the hatchet and butcher knife murders of 3 people in Philadelphia. He spent 16 years in prison, 10 of them on death row, before DNA acquitted him of all charges. Today, he's joined abolitionists in speaking out against the death penalty.
The death penalty is not a deterrent, and the death penalty does not give victims what they claim as closure. Because once you're dead, whether it's right or wrong, you're still going to suffer. For what? You're going to suffer for the revenge part of your soul and your heart.
His years lost in prison means Wilson missed all the pivotal moments parents witness as their children grow up.
I wanted to work and be the parent that my dad wasn't. Okay, I wanted to be the man that didn't drink, and they took that dream from me. I often, spend time with myself and ponder over it. But when I look and hear a bird or see the sunshine, I can see the trees moving, because you don't see that when you're living surrounded by razor wire.
Minorities are disproportionately sentenced to death. In Pennsylvania, blacks comprise nearly 60% of those sentenced to death since 1980.
I'm opposed to it for one reason. It's my folk who are being executed. It's black defendants who themselves are not prepared to respond in court, let alone the counsel that they have. They aren't trained for that. They have this expression, we go ahead and kill people so that we can make sure that everyone understands that killing people is not right.
Berks County District Attorney John Adams has sought the death penalty 6 times since taking office in 2008, reserving it, he says, for the worst of the worst. But at the end of the day, the prosecutor's job, Adams says, is not about getting convictions as much as it is about protecting the public.
I don't think there's a legal basis for the moratorium, and therefore I believe that the governor has overstepped his authority. You have to look at every case differently. You have to look at the facts and the law and be fair. As a prosecutor, I will seek it in only the most egregious cases. Personally, I believe it may be warranted in certain circumstances.
Reading defense attorney Robert Kerwin has represented 5 men in capital cases from Berks, Lancaster, and Schuylkill counties.
As a young prosecutor with the DA's office back in the early 90s, I was very much in favor of the death penalty. But when I switched to become a defense attorney years later, and you start to talk to these people who've been accused of heinous crimes, there's still a little bit of human left in them, and not every one of them is deserving of a death penalty. The only death penalty case that I've had in my career that is actually a person who was sentenced to a death was Abraham Sanchez out of Lancaster. Of all the people that I thought would have been worthy of a sentence of death, he was the least person. His mental level was that of barely above mental retardation. Undisputed evidence came out that his father had brutally beat the boy as a child. His retardation was as a result of the head trauma. And that really affected me to the point where I thought, the system isn't working right, because if the jury followed the rules the way they're supposed to, if they understood the legal concepts the way they're supposed to, if they listened to the judge's instructions the way they were supposed to, and weighed the evidence like they're supposed to, he shouldn't be on death row.
After killing R.J. Bobish's father, mother, and pregnant sister, family friend Mark Edwards shot and stabbed 12-year-old R.J. Today, the 26-year-old believes the death penalty is an appropriate punishment, but not for his family's killer.
The reason why I don't want the death penalty for Marky is because I'm at peace with what happened, and no matter what I do in today's life or anything, my family's not coming back. I'm not going to have them back. So the only thing I can do, why dwell? It's only going to bring stuff back up and make it worse for other people if he were to die because of my family. Even though he does deserve that, I don't want that to happen because it wouldn't do anything for me now. It wouldn't make me feel better. If anything, it would probably make me feel worse knowing that his family would be going through what I went through. If I could say anything to Marky, I would let him know that I forgave him and that he wouldn't have to worry about any guilt that he were to have for doing what he did.
The day of Keith Zettelmoyer's execution in 1995, the convicted killer requested to spend his final hours with a pastor, retired prison chaplain, and former police detective Harry Covert.
I spent 7 hours with Keith Zettelmoyer. We shared prayer together, the sacrament of Holy Communion. And at the time that he was being prepared for the actual execution, of course, he was placed on the gurney and strapped down. But while Keith was lying on the gurney, he posed a question to me. He asked, "What will you tell people about this night?" Immediately after that, he was pushed into the room where the lines were hooked up, and he never opened up his eyes beyond that. And I had a silent prayer in that room for him, that the Lord would give him peace and strength during this time. That question kept coming back and sort of haunting me. It came to me. I know what I will tell people about this, that in the darkest places in life, even an execution chamber, we find the forgiveness and the grace of Almighty God.